Hello, and welcome to the Otaku Clubhouse. And this is Sink or Swim. What is Sink or Swim? Well, it's where we discuss anime, video games, movies, and just about whatever media catches our eye. Then give our first impressions of them. From top to bottom, we give our ratings of a swim, a tread, a float, a drowning, and at worst, a sink. Comments are always welcome, and of course, we're waiting to hear what you have to say too. Let's get into it.
We just got finished watching the first episode of a new anime called 86. It's an anime about an Aryan nation of blue-haired and silver-eyed people who live in this really weird kingdom set in the future, like 2148, something like that. So they got rid of all of the black people and Indians and Chinese people. The entire society seems to live far away from some nameless war that's going on that the military claims that there's a bloodless war, 0 casualties. And the main character is Major Lilia, what's her name? Lily?
No, it's Vladeline.
I can't pronounce that shit.
Last name.
Well, the main character is a major in her military branch, and she is an operator or like a commander for a unit, which you think that it's like AIs or drones going by how the battle progresses, but it's revealed that the society that they're in stands on the backs of the oppressed non-Aryans, which aren't even like just all brown people. It's just like people who aren't the fucking blue-haired weirdos, and they fight against other little weird people and these robot crabs. And the story seems to be going between the rear echelon people who were the operators to the 86 Squadron, which the main character has just got assigned to after the last operator committed suicide for not being able to handle the stress of being the operator. And the difference between most operators and the main character is that she seems to care about the little slave people and doesn't want them to be sacrificed so that they can like sit around and drink wine and get drunk as seen. I think that's it, right? That's what happens.
Yeah, that's basically it. The first episode was establishing what's really going on in the story. Much like Hawkeiser said, all you're really given right off the bat is an introduction to the world, and I'm not going to say her full name, but Lena and her circumstances as to why she's put in charge of this unit. Initially, it's shown that when she's put in charge of the unit in the military, that she understands that the people who are essentially their slaves, she's upset they're dying because, she sees them as people. But it's also shown that the people in what I'm remembering, then they're the Republic of San Magnolia, I think.
Republic of Sands.
The Republic of San Magnolia, the people do not see these other people as people. They see them more as lesser beings. You're also shown a little bit of the main character, who I'm guessing, who unfortunately has the stigma of looking like a light novel protagonist, let's just say it.
Kirito.
His name is quite literally Shine. Did you two catch that?
No.
Yeah.
Shine.
His name is literally Shine Nolzen. For those of you who don't know, that means death. Anyway.
Shine!
Alright, well, let's just talk about the anime itself. What were you guys' general impressions off the bat about 86?
General impressions? Generally, I wasn't impressed. Because there is the whole bait and switch. Like Akuma and Hawkeiser already said, there's a whole bait and switch about, they've reached no violence in war because no humans are dying. That's what the the inanime newscaster said no human casualties, and you're also like, that's strange. And all the people that you see on the streets or stuff have the same hair color, the same eye color, the same skin color. You're like, that's strange. Time magazine said they're gonna be brown in 100 years. That's weird. They're all white. So of course, when it's revealed that the people fighting in the war are like actual like normal humans, then you're like, oh man, really? Except that bait and switch doesn't work, because there's a cold open at the start of this anime where you see Chine, or his code name Undertaker, play the fucking Undertaker music, don't do that, copyright. But he fighting in these ugly ass mechs, by the way, ugly CG insect mechs, and you see him and you see that his face is not like these other so-called true humans, so you already know that that plot twist is coming. And I don't know if that's like, I don't know what the purpose of that direction was. Like, clearly the director wanted that to be the very first thing you see, but it kind of, you know, rolls back the whole surprise about these humans being not all they appear to be.
Well, this is where we're actually going to clash on this a lot, because I thought that generally I was very positive on the first episode. I felt that the way that it was shown may not have been the best way at the very beginning. However, I could understand the obvious push that the media is propagandizing to the people of San Magnolia, in the sense that, well, we're not actually using people. There's none of our people are dying. You can see all the people on the street living happily. Meanwhile, if you go outside of what I'm guessing is their little country, you would find the 86, who are people of different races, being essentially forced into this horrible bloodless war that they're claiming that they're having.
I don't know, it just all feels so very David Cagey, to the point where there's a scene where Line is with her friend Annette, and she's like, wow, I managed to make a cake with real eggs, implying that real eggs in the future is like a very precious rarity, something that like the food is all synthetic or something, which is probably, you know, a caveat that you have to reach when the population in 100 years would be like 11 billion, right? But then when we cut to the 86, they just got real chickens running around like casually, and they're eating real food, but then they also have to go through the fucking squalor of war and being slaves and fighting. Because like, I understand that symbolism, I understand that visual metaphor, but it's kind of like on the nose in a way that I don't really appreciate.
Well, I don't really see the problem with directly throwing a obvious visual metaphor like directly on the nose. And putting it as David Cage, I don't think that it's quite at the level of, we're not even going to talk about what we're going to talk about because we're going to talk about it later. But I don't feel that it's so ham-handed that it becomes distracting or a detriment to the story. I feel that there are some instances just in the first episode alone that hold some gravitas, such as when Lena's actually sitting down and she's speaking with her unit, despite the fact that she's very open-heartedly expressing the fact that she's upset somebody was lost in the unit. The natural reaction of any of the 86 is, well, go fuck yourself. Oh, we feel so bad. Oh, you know, we feel so bad for you. You're working so hard. We're losing our comrades out here while you're sitting in your palace and giving orders, and essentially tell her to go fuck herself. I feel, despite the fact that the melodrama is on point, which is pretty obvious, I mean, it's an anime after all, especially a war anime, then it's going to be like that to some degree.
Yeah, I get it. Like, Lene is like one of the few, if the only, member of this purple race, I'm just gonna refer to him as that actually gives a shit about the war. Like, you see the rest of the military are fucking cracking 40s, fucking throwing dice, talking about raping their superior officers and shit. She's the only one who takes it seriously. She complains to her superior officer, and he's like, if you want to make it anywhere in this world, you gotta stop humanizing these humans. So I don't know. I get it. Like, I get it, right? But I've also read a lot of stories, seen a lot of shows, seen a lot of movies that are similar to this. So it kind of comes across as heavy-handed, especially in the first episode. If this was spread out, I wouldn't complain so much, but it's just like pumped in the first episode. And I get it. That's the hook. That's, you want to get people watching more, especially people who've never seen something like this. Yeah, obviously.
What'd you think, Hawk?
Just because I've seen a lot of the fucking slave race shows and mangas and stuff, it's kind of, I'm bouncing off of it a little bit just because I feel like it's not really doing nothing that I haven't seen before. I didn't really find like the main character's niceness to be like genuine, or not genuine, but like, where does it come from? They didn't sort of explain why she cares about these people while everybody else is just sort of an asshole and sees them as slaves. I don't like the robots. I think they look kind of creepy. It's not, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's like a bad show, but it's like, I can get this sort of story from other sources and have like fights that I like and robots that I like.
Yeah, I agree.
It really reminds me of Iron-Blooded Orphans.
My first thought was actually Code Geass.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense too.
Like, even down to the fact that they're given a number designation.
Yeah, true.
Well, we were just talking about the plot, essentially, just arguing back and forth. You did mention the mech designs, and yeah, the mech designs are kind of ugly. That doesn't really bother me. I'm not directly a mecha guy. Anyone who's heard my opinions on heavy objects knows how I feel just about giant robots for the most part. When it really comes down to it, I can understand not immediately being like, that thing looks cool, because it doesn't. It really doesn't. It actually reminds me a lot of the robots that appear in Index, where they are essentially less mech and more occupational vehicle.
Well, I think the thing that Heavy Object and Index have in common is that they are light novels first and foremost, and this one is also based off a light novel, right?
Yes, it is based off of a light novel.
I feel like the reason why the mech designs are really something, because it's not something you see that often. They just describe it, right? They just describe it, and if you're lucky, you might see a design or something, and that's why when they're adapted and they animate it, and they don't really focus on it, they don't really put any effort into it, and as a result, you get some really basic looking, like Zoid, insectoid Zoids. That's what I described them as. And the CG, by the way, so. Noticeable CG, by the way, so.
I don't feel like the CG is really a problem, though, to be honest. Like, where I was talking about the CG blending really well with The World Ends With You, I feel that the CG doesn't blend well with 86, but I feel that it's like, it looks fine. Like, there's no instance in which I'm like, oh, I can't tell if that's 2D or not. It's obviously a 3D model. But I feel like it still moves fine. It's not janky. Or at least, even if it is, it's hidden well behind enough explosions that I can't really see it.
Well, just speaking for myself, I think it's not bad CG, but it's below average. It's like mediocre. It's on the cusp of mediocre. And the frame rate is pretty low, and like the action scenes won't really do nothing for me. Like, can't really tell who's in trouble or not, which why they have to have the after sequence where it's just like somebody's fucked up and you're like, oh man, that's
well, that much is true. I feel like the fact that you can't really tell which machine is being blown to smithereens is really going to hurt it. But, you know, we'll have to end up seeing, depending on what happens later on in the series. The last thing to really talk about are the character designs and the music. The character designs for Lena, she's really the only one that has anything that really stands out, and it's obvious that, like, if you look up this series, she's going to be the first thing that anybody notices because, you know, she's the girl of the series.
Well, I actually thought the only thing that stood out about her was the fact that she was the only one who had a hat on.
I didn't even notice the hat, dog. Just be real with you.
I think, if I'm remembering right, the character designer for 86 is actually the same character designer of Musaigun Phantom World. What was the name of that one
The one shit that's all style over substance, yeah.
Yeah, like the one that's like the girl with the ponytail and the yellow cardigan and the big boobs.
And he had the little fairy, and he had
Yes.
the redheaded girl.
Yes,
yeah.
Musaigen no Phantom World. Yeah, I think that's the designer. As far as music, it was fucking totally forgettable.
Might as well not have been there.
The opening itself specifically, like, that opening is just fucking noise. I could not say anything good about that opening. The ending theme we didn't hear, but it's going to be a Sawano piece, so I'm definitely in for that. Anything else?
I think that about says it.
Alright, well, then let's talk our ratings. I guess I'll go first since it's pretty obvious that I'm somewhat high on it. I'll definitely drop it with a tread because I don't think it's particularly incredible in any way. I think everything about it is good. I don't think anything about it is particularly amazing though. Like, the Code Geass comparison that I made earlier continues to burrow deeper into my mind the more I think about it. It really is just Code Geass, but without Lelouch, or at least we don't know how Shine is going to end up really being as a character. He doesn't feel as charismatic as Lelouch immediately, and despite the fact that Lena feels like she has a very Euphemia Lacus kind of personality where she's like dragged into a war and is still like tries to maintain her innocence and good personality throughout, but ultimately ends up being corrupted by the end, I can't really say that it's speaking that immediately. Admittedly, it's the first episode, and I don't expect them to start throwing hints of her becoming anything else by the first episode, but, you know, I'm not saying that I have anything thrown at me from this first episode that really catches my eye, aside from the fact that the first character to die in it was a black guy.
He wasn't black, he was ambiguously brown. Come on now.
The ambiguously brown guy, then. The ambiguously brown guy was the first one to die. So, yes, I'll give it a tread.
Man. I went into this very open-minded, and to be honest, if it was only like the first half of the anime, I would probably give this a float. But towards the back end, I was bouncing off of it. I don't know what it is about this, and part of it is having seen stories like this before, and part of it was it being a little heavy-handed. So I'm going to give this one a drown, just for my personal, not being objective whatsoever, but I'm gonna give it a drown since, yes, I got a less than neutral feeling about it, so I gotta give it a less than neutral rating.
I guess I'll have to just say it's a float. I think it's just boring. I don't think that the premise is interesting enough to stand on its own. The character designs, they're nothing special. No music, animation is whatever. The robots suck. I have no reason to watch this show. It's like I said before, I can go and watch Iron-Blooded Orphans if I want a dehumanized populace rise up anime or something. I don't even particularly like Iron-Blooded Orphans, but I would watch it over this shit. It's kind of corny too. Corny in a bad way. I can't bring myself to care about the slave race. They just seem like the typical rowdy bunch. I can't bring myself to care about the main character. She's just a generic nice girl sort of character. It's not for me, and it's by Studio A1, so you already know how I feel about that.
So you sure you're gonna just give it a float then?
Do not question me. Do not question my complex motives. That's my rating, and I'm sticking by it.
Alright, so that's our look at 86. So hit us up on Twitter, leave a comment down below, like the video, and share it. And stick around because we still got more coming for this season. Catch you in the next one.